Where's the thing?
The Northwest home for paranormal. You're listening to U.S. Phenomenon with your host, Mario Magana.
West in the shadow of the 1962 World's Fair, the Space Needle. Good evening. I am your host, Mario Magana. This is U.S. Phenomenon. If this is your first time, we thank you for being a part of the show. If you're a returning guest, thank you for making us the #1 live and local paranormal radio show. Tonight, our guest has been an integral part of U.S. Phenomenon since the very beginning. He's produced content that has been related to the mysteries of human history, science, the occult, and so-called conspiracy theories. He hosts his own show called Deprogrammed on the TNT Radio Podcast Network at Bean Pod. His Twitter handle is at Michael Parker. Welcome back to U.S. Phenomenon, our good friend Michael Parker.
Greetings, Mario. It's a pleasure. How are you?
Man, I mean, I'm great. You know, there's always these weird phenomenons that happen. And thank you for patiently waiting and hanging out with us. So the last time we were on, we were talking about some other things. Tons been going on in the world of headline news.
Last time I talked to you, we were talking about Lake Mead. Oh, by the way, just yesterday, I think they found another body at Lake Mead. But that last time we spoke, that was what we were talking about.
Not Hoffa, though. We don't think it's Hoffa.
I can't rule that out entirely.
I love it. It could be Hoffa. It could be anybody, right?
Yeah, it could be anybody. Did you know? I don't know if you watch the show Westworld. So the new season of Westworld, it's a science fiction thing that's on HBO, and it's based on the Michael Crichton book and the movie from the 70s and everything. And it's about humans and androids and transhumanism and everything. Anyway, their first episode of this new series was at Lake Mead at the dam.
Yes. You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy about that whole thing? It's like when you think about it now. I mean, it could be anybody. These bodies are just showing up at random. You know, I don't know.
And they may have determined who it is. I just saw it the other day. I was scanning. I was looking for something else, but I saw it. They may have already figured out who it is, but I don't know. I haven't checked.
So when we first started when I started doing this radio show and podcast back in the day, we did a show way long ago about a show about Epstein and Ghislaine. I think it was more about Epstein himself versus Ghislaine. But we know recently in the headlines that she's been sent to a prison. And so let's talk about this and talk about the Black Book. And then we'll talk about in the second half of the show some things that are going on that are we still in a pandemic, or are we now moving into an endemic with some of these COVID, B69, I don't want to call it B69, but, AB, the AB switch or whatever they're calling the AB, 500 or whatever the BS 2000. I just don't, I can't keep up. I just cannot keep up. But Ghislaine is going to a federal, or has been sent to a federal prison, but it's posh, right? It's not,
because she was sent to, I thought they were going to send her that one in Connecticut. That is the one that I think that either inspired, what is it? Orange is the New Black, that television show. I thought they were going to send her there. But now they've decided they're going to send her to a low security prison in Tallahassee, Florida. It's pretty cush. And not only that, here's another thing I think that's weird about it is I believe it's a co-ed prison.
Now, when you say a co-ed prison, do you think that this, as we're looking at this, do you think that she's going to be able to, if you're not able to, you're listening to us on the radio, there is a video version of the show that you can always go to and watch on airmario.com, and we'll have it available up there. You can see what we're talking about, but this is the posh prison we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's, from my understanding, It is a pretty, well, it's low security, and I had read that it was co-ed. Now, how the men and women are allowed to mingle or not allowed to mingle, I don't know about that, but I thought it was odd that they would send her to one of these. And I don't know why they picked this particular prison. I don't know what it was about it, but a lot of people have been upset by this because they're like, well, wait a minute. She's going to go to this low security prison where, she's going to have the internet. She's going to have privileges. She'll be allowed to exercise. She could take yoga classes. She could get occupational therapy. Not that she's going to get out and look for a job. At one point, it even said, "Oh, and they even have talent shows." It's almost like she's going away for summer camp. And I know that I'm generalizing this, but it does sound like, well, it's low security. So one has to ask, why is this? Did she do a deal? Did she turn over some evidence? How did she get sent to this low security prison?
When you say that, do you believe that it is the intent of maybe she had padded the list, the black book, in regards to giving some intel to what we now know as, most of us call, the black book? But does this black book, is it damning enough to destroy the United States? I joke, but I'm sure there's some heavy hitters in that.
Oh, for sure. So here's what I do know from working on this on other shows and people that are in the know. There is the black book, which you can find on the internet, and most of it's been slightly redacted, but you can see the names. You can't see phone numbers, I don't think. And I think there's celebrities in there. I think there's regular people in there. There's God knows who's in there. But then there's also, I was told this by Conchita Sarnoff, who has been following this story probably, I don't know, 15, 20 years maybe. She wrote a book called Traffic King that is about Epstein. And she had said that it was her understanding that there were a list of about 5 names. Now, this is outside of the black book, but there were like 5 names, although they may be in the black book. She didn't specify that, but it was the context of the conversation was that it was possible that Ghislaine would reveal these 5 men, and these were like big time people, which leads you to believe that they're politicians. And perhaps she would use those 5 people as leverage to get a lighter sentence, or which now leads people to think, well, did she finally give over some of those names? And is that what happened that got her sent to this low security prison? Now, another thing that I've heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, and if this is one of the people, it's a little bit disappointing because I don't think it's that big a fish, was one of them was Elliot Spitzer, who had already been in trouble. And but I do not know that that's who the 5 are, or if that person is one of them, but that name did come forward. Now, of course, so people always wonder, well, okay, of the 5, does that mean Bill Clinton, Donald Trump? Who does that mean? I don't know who it means. And I don't know if she's given any of those names up. We don't know why she got transferred. Some people don't like this because they think it's unfair to the victims that she's now going to get to spend out her years in this kind of cush university campus looking place. On the other hand, now the other side of this is like some people think that she's being sent to a low security prison because she might be easier to dispatch.
Back out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is just what people are saying. I could understand all of it. I don't know which part is the right part.
It's interesting because when we talk about this, I was looking online, and before the computer crashed, because that's what typically happens on these kinds of things. I mean, we're talking about some big names, former presidents of the United States.
Yes.
Kevin Spacey was also named, to also being on the private jet. So that private jet going to Epstein Island, Bill Gates was also someone who, and there's a ton of other people on this list. Now, when we start talking about this list and how this really plays out, I mean, are they really innocent until proven guilty? And I know Bill Gates said he only had as he has reported in multiple interviews, that he said he only had an encounter with him once
Mm-mm.
And then when he figured out what he was about, he was like, I can't be a part of this anymore. Now, is that really true? Are we looking at,
I don't
Bill
think so.
Gates? Bill Gates. I mean, we talked about this so many episodes ago on this show. We talked about this. What was the first thing that came out of my mouth? I said, "What about Bill Gates? Why isn't anyone talking about Bill Gates?"
Yeah.
I know he's like the Northwest, hero or folklore of, software mogul, but let's be honest. I mean, okay, let's call an ace and a spade. I mean, I want to know. I want to know what was going on with him there. Was he really doing humanitarian, funding, trying to get funds, or was he getting, fondled humanitarily?
Well,
I mean,
I know exactly what you say. Well, look, I think that particular guy, there's a lot of people who don't like him. There's a lot of people that are very suspicious of him. And Gates' own wife, I think, said in their, I'm not sure if they're divorced yet or not, but they're going to get divorced, right? Okay, so some of this came forth in interviews from her where she said that was part of the reason we're getting divorced, because I do not approve of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And I don't know how many times he dealt with Epstein. It's certainly more than one. I would guess it's like probably a half dozen times. And Epstein's game was, I call him a people collector. He was one of those people that liked to be around powerful and famous people. And that's what he wanted for himself. So he wanted to be around those people. And what he would offer them, besides the company of young women, was that, he would help them raise money for their various funds. And I do also know that Epstein, one of his big things was he was a transhumanist. He's one of these guys that believe that, we should all be able to live for as long as we wanted to live. And, a lot of these guys who are billionaires, and I believe Epstein was probably close to a billionaire at the time of his death. If you were a billionaire, wouldn't you want to live forever? I mean, it's only the poor people that are like, man, let me out of here. But if you're rich, yeah, you would want to live as long as you possibly can. And transhumanism is that idea through technology and advanced medical technologies that we could live long periods of time. So he gave money and found others to help give money to a lot of scientists and a lot of people like Bill Gates. And you think about Bill Gates, one of the richest men in the world. For a long time, he was the richest guy in the world, yet he wants other people to put their money into his foundation. And I think that was the hook that Epstein used to get in the circle with Gates. And then Gates, they hung out a few times.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you talk about some of the most powerful, rich individuals who want to have that ultimate life, I mean, they couldn't save Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft. They could not save him. The Allen Institute, and the joke is now that he's he's
cryogenically
frozen in the Allen Institute over here off of Mercer in downtown Seattle and South Lake Union. So when we talk about these things, great, but the social circle just seems like it didn't pass the sniff test when we were talking about this at the very beginning of the show about, we're like, what about Gates and what about some of these other powerful individuals? And are we ever going to know? Is this going to go down like a Kennedy situation where the conspiracy will always be there, where we're not going to have an answer to some of these to these questions, like who are we going to hold accountable for this?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with does Ghislaine live or not? And so there's another person that's involved in this, the guy named Lex Westner, and he was this really, really rich guy who owned a lot of different retail outlets, including Victoria's Secret. And somehow he seems to have escaped all of this, because it wasn't just Epstein. So there was Epstein. I can't think of this one guy, Luke somebody, who died at the beginning of this year, I believe, outside of Paris. He was one of and then there's Ghislaine, but there was also this guy, Westner. And so, I mean, there were more people involved in this than just Epstein and Ghislaine, but they were the primary, they were the primary leaders or partners in this thing. And so Wexner, I don't see anything happening to him. That guy, Jean-Luc Brunel, I think is his name. He was a modeling guy who funneled a lot of women to Epstein. So he, I think, also dies mysteriously in prison. I think he hung himself as well. So that was the beginning of the year. So now that leads it to Ghislaine. And people have always said, would Ghislaine live to be sentenced? And honestly, I didn't know if she would or not. But now she's getting sent to this low security prison. That's a co-ed prison.
I mean, it's scary. Here's the thing, though. Are we going to make a little wager here next time you're on the show? Is someone going to knock her off? I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how much is it worth to?
I think it's worth a lot.
To not have her here.
I think it would be worth a lot. And I don't know, but if I had to bet or guess, I would probably say, yeah, I think that she probably is not long for this world. And how that goes down, because if you remember, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself.
Yeah, he did. I mean, and they don't have. Yeah, he did. That's too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if the walls could talk in that prison, and I believe that prison's been shut down ever since his fighting.
No, I think that even she was kept there. I think that's that Brooklyn.
Okay.
But you're right. Okay, so if they didn't shut it down, they probably should have, because I think she complained about it, saying it was inhumane and everything. But yeah, there were so many things the cameras go down, the guards are asleep, all that nonsense. But he did kill himself. We all know that.
Right. I will say this. She goes from living this posh lifestyle, and some of the things that they're going to offer her, like Dial soap, and she'll be able to eat Velveeta macaroni and cheese. I mean, I bet you the lady has no idea what the heck Velveeta cheese is.
She may now.
I mean, growing up, if you had Velveeta, you were big time. Now, for me, it was that box macaroni and cheese, and then sometimes it was the generic stuff, and so it wasn't even a bright orange. It was like this, milky white, yellow. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, man, put a couple hot dogs in there, man, I was solid. That thing was solid. Macaroni and cheese and some hot dogs, man, that was the ghetto-fi, bougie, classic growing up 80s dinner. We were broke. So
yeah, that's not prison food. That's 4-4-3-2, 4 food groups for me and you kind of thing. It's just that's a square meal.
Right. And look, I mean, we saw it earlier. We saw it on the I'll put it up real quick. If you have a chance to go check us out on airmario.com, the video of or at least the pictures, and we'll have more of the pictures posted on the website of Ghislaine's new posh mansion in the federal prison in Tallahassee. I mean, we saw a track there. We saw the Field of Dreams there. I mean, it's nice. Like you said earlier, it looks like a university.
It does. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, now this is an aerial photo. Right. And I'm sure when you get down there to it, it's not as nice, but that's what it reminds me of. You got that, the running track, racing track,
The only thing they're missing is like the horror stories and Jason walking around the campus.
Yep.
I mean, oh.
You know what? It's funny. I wanted to. Okay, the laptop that I'm on, I want to bring that up, but I don't know if you've ever noticed, and this is just for your listeners and viewers as well. If you go in Daily Mail, your machine will start getting hot. It is so loaded with ads and photos. It's like I always get a little message at the top like, this page is utilizing a great deal of processing energy or something like that. So I'm not even pulling it up to reacquaint myself with it, but it does look like a university campus. And my understanding is it's co-ed, and she can go to yoga classes, and they have the occasional talent show. She could get occupational therapy. I mean, it sounds like a walk in the park.
And for those who are probably like, oh, she should be locked up further, blah, blah, blah. Look, she's going to finish her prison sentence, 20 years. It looks like they're getting after most of these guys. R. Kelly as well.
Yep.
I mean, I can't even talk about R. Kelly just because I'm like, and now these kids are doing these TikTok videos to like step in the name of love. I'm like, how is this even possible? This is an R. Kelly song. Why are they? I'm like, oh my God, kids. I'm like, told my daughter, I'm like, you can't, nope, you can't dance to that song. That guy was a sex trafficker. No.
And you know what? I think that he got more time than Ghislaine got. He got a bigger sentence.
Yeah, 30 years.
And I'm not saying that what he did was worse or better, but I think that what Ghislaine did was pretty bad. And I don't know that he deserves more than she, or maybe she deserves just as much as he, but they both did some pretty bad things.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I know we talked about this and as we get close to the bottom of the hour, look, when more information does come out, we're going to have to do another show because I think we're going to see some play here. Now, if she for some reason hangs herself or commits suicide and takes a dirt nap, we're going to have to do another show.
Oh, yeah.
We'll do another show, but we'll have to bring that. I mean, it's going to open a whole nother can of worms.
Another thing that people don't know about Ghislaine is that she had two sisters. They were very big tech people and they made a lot of money. She's got a brother. I think the brother might live in Texas. Her father, Robert Maxwell, it's pretty well known. The guy was a spy. And he was also a competitor of Rupert Murdoch for a bit. He had a English paper, which I can't remember, but this was not a family that was low on resources. They were all very intelligent, and she came from money, and they still have money.
I wonder if she'll break out of prison. I wonder if someone's going to break her out and be like, all right, let's go. Like, Alcatraz type situation where she's just like, I'm out, I'm going. And she's gone.
That's what some people already think. And here's another interesting thing. This facility in Tallahassee is only like 5 hours from where she and Epstein, used to do all this stuff. And so some of the conspiracy theorists are like, the tunnel to Disneyland or Disney World or something. I don't know, but it is interesting. They send her back to the place that she came from and not far from where they did a lot of these things.
I guess you can get swimming paddles at the Tallahassee grocery store in the federal prison. Yeah. I'm kidding. I have no idea.
Get some little floaties.
Yeah, little floaties. When we come back, Mark Christopher for our paranormal story of the week. And then we're going to talk about, is this really a pandemic, an endemic, or is this just more the fear factor, the conditioning of what's to come in the future? We'll be back. You're listening to U.S. Phenomenon. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to U.S. Phenomenon. Mark, thank you for your paranormal story of the week. Our guest tonight is a good friend of the show who's been apart for such a long time, since back in the Northwest Phenomenon days. I
remember it well.
The podcast, still podcasting. Now the show is called U.S. Phenomenon. Our guest tonight, Michael Parker. You can find him on his Twitter handle and all his socials at Michael Parker LA. And he does a show daily on the TNT Radio Podcast Network, which is at Bean
TNT Live. TNT Live.
Okay.
Yeah. Just put that in there and you'll find me.
Okay. So, earlier we were talking about, Ghislaine Maxwell, the whole, Epstein situation. And when we started talking about the pandemic and what was going on back 2 years ago and why the show even became a thing, we were talking about what the conditioning and like the shots and just all the stuff that's been going on. Now we're talking about a different variant now, and now we're talking about another source of a pandemic now becoming a thing, the monkeypox. Are we talking about conditioning now? Are we talking about, we know that things are not as good as they should be. I don't think the country's going to shut itself down. I know there are people that are out there that are freaked out about
Yeah.
monkeypox.
Yeah.
And look, regardless on how it's transmitted, if it's through sexual transmission or if it's touch, look, people are freaked out, you know, regardless on what your situation may be. People, again, the information that is being told from both sides of the house, you know, from liberals to conservatives, some more freaked out than others, and also others are freaked out versus the other. Are we looking at the new COVID with the monkeypox? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, let me throw something out there. On my show, which is called Deprogram on TNT Live, we talked a lot about the monkeypox, and I right off the bat I was talking about it. But what I remember is last year, the end of the year, because I used to think to myself, it's like, and this is a paranormal kind of edgy show, so I'm going to go ahead and put my wild and crazy thought out there for your audience. Look, we know that COVID was created in a lab. Yeah, it might have happened in China, but we essentially funded it, you know, and so we have a hand in this as well. And that's the truth that nobody wants to admit to, although it's completely patently obvious. Okay, so Fauci and Daszak and all the rest of it, we paid for that, and it was created. So anyway, I would always think, I was like, you know what? If they wanted to create this for some reason and they wanted to condition us and get us to be compliant and everything and scare the heck out of us, well, what you really need, to step it up, you need something, because COVID's scary, but it's inside people. Man, if you really want to amp up the fear, what you do is create something or leak something that people will see on their skin, that they will see outside, because then we are vain animals, right? And me included. It's like, man, if you got a disease that people can see, now the fear shoots straight through the roof. And I was thinking all that at the end of the year. And then sometime in November, our good friend Bill Gates even drops that idea. Holy cow, folks, you never know. There could be an outbreak of smallpox. And when I heard that, I was like, oh boy, that ain't a good sign. That is not good. So anyway, we flash forward several months into 2022, and, all of a sudden we've got two outbreaks of monkeypox, and they're both coming from these kind of festival pride kind of situations. And everything about this is weird to me. And I've been on record talking about this, so I'll just go ahead and say it here. I thought it was very strange from the beginning when they were saying, it's primarily being passed by men who have sex with men. I thought that was a really weird way. Wouldn't you just say gay or bi or whatever? But whatever. I just noticed they said that, and I guess because now we have this spectrum of things, it's easier to say that than all that. Anyway, I was like, well, wait a minute. That seems a lot like you're kind of putting out ideas that this would be similar to the AIDS thing in the 80s, and that's going to horrify people. Well, anyway,
out in the 80s. We talked about this at the studio. We were talking about how kids, they freaked you out. You're like, you're going to have an abortion. You're going to die. You're going to die. So
they're playing the fear card pretty hard here, because remember, monkeypox wasn't a thing until the 1970s. A young boy was discovered with it. That was the first case. There's a couple of countries in Africa where it's essentially endemic. You don't want to get it, but they've learned to live with it. And, I believe the numbers were like 3,000 to 9,000 people per year would get this thing. And it shows up in the States in 2003, when weirdly enough, some gophers, I believe they were gophers or prairie dogs, had been brought into the country.
Right.
Probably, I know it's completely crazy. I think it was prairie dogs. Who knows if this is even true, but this is what they blamed it on. And at that point, there were somewhere between 47 to 70 cases that supposedly sprung from the transmission that came off of these prairie dogs. I think since then, there have been a couple of other cases of it in the U.S., but never a big deal. We sorted it out. We got people better. But this year, when it emerged, there was a kind of a pride festival kind of thing, I think on an island off of Spain. And I think there was like a fetish kind of festival type thing, I believe, in Canada. Anyway, in both of these, it was largely male, and that's where the narrative came from that there's a thing called monkeypox, and it's traveling amongst largely male populations. Now, even several weeks down the road, now I believe that the U.S. is leading in the cases of monkeypox. There is a monkeypox vaccine supposedly, but although apparently there's not enough of it. And a pharmacist on my show said today that the monkeypox vaccine, if not the same, is very similar to a smallpox vaccine. So I don't know why there would be a shortage on those. And especially at the very beginning, I think that we dropped like 100. I don't even remember how many. I think we dropped like $100 million on some of these vaccines at the very beginning of it. So I don't know why there's a shortage right now, but apparently there is.
Some of the states that are showing, some significant numbers. New York is 1247. Texas had 315. Washington State had 108. And Cali, where you're hanging out at these days, right? You're still there?
Oh, yeah.
Just LA. At 799. So, there's 3 in Delaware. District of Columbia has 214. I mean, the numbers, Idaho's 3. You go move to Idaho. You're afraid of monkeypox. Go there. Kansas, 1. Maine, 1. So, Mississippi, 1. North Dakota, 1. Now we have to deal with, which is interesting because I was, just talking with others, and people are so freaked out that like no one wants to hang out anymore. It's like I'm going home and I'm just going to hang out at my spot and I'm not going to do anything anymore.
Not me, Jack. I'm still gonna mix in the world. It's like I mean, I was going to concerts, I was riding planes, look, we have to live our life. Now that said, you don't have to engage in risky behavior. Now, some people might say, well, Parker, that was risky behavior. Well, no, I'm talking about
sexual risky behavior,
skin to skin kind of thing. So I wish there was not a political angle to this. I at the end of the day, I don't think that monkeypox is going to be to the scale of COVID, but it does scare the heck out of people. And when you, like I say, when you have something that's on people's skins, or you kind of are hinting at the fact that it's traveling through the gay community or something, or the what have you, you know what I'm saying? It scares people, that might be the whole point. I don't know.
I mean, for example, I mean, regardless if you're gay, straight, or bi, or whatever the case may be, what if you're in a public place and you just happen to actually rub against someone? According to, that's all it takes is you just got to touch them. Boom. Now all of a sudden you got monkeypox. That's what a lot of people are. I mean, it's still, the information is so fluid right now.
Well, I would say this, for the people that have monkeypox, I mean, for goodness sakes, you got to stay home. I mean, it's like I'm sorry, you're 4 weeks. That's the whole thing with COVID. They made healthy people stay home and do all of this when we should have basically taken care of the elderly, the obese, the people with issues, but we, instead of like putting your treatments on everybody, those who are most at risk and those who already have it, those are the people that need to stay home.
Right. From what I've heard recently, at least what's out there right now, we're talking 4 weeks to go through the whole process. That's a long time.
Yeah, it is.
4 weeks. They're also talking that, younger cases, younger children are getting it. I'm not sure how that transmission is happening. I'm not trying to freak people out. We're just talking about something that is going on right now. That is,
and Mario, I'm going to admit, I'm not freaked out about it. I know that it's out there. And if I were part of the community that they're trying to describe this as being more susceptible to it, I would just be responsible. It's like, everybody's intelligent people here. It's like, know the risk, know what's happening. And, if a bunch of people have pneumonia or the flu or something, don't go hang out with them. I mean, you need to just take care of yourself and try to stay healthy.
Know your inherent risk. I know, we, as we always say, if you want to get the vax, get it. If you don't.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to evolve, and we're going to see how the local media, or we'll just say how media is going to treat this. if we're looking at a situation like what they did in the 80s with the AIDS pandemic, whatever you want to call it, AIDS crisis that was forming back in the 80s. I mean, it was the most scary thing. It was like AIDS and DARE, two programs that were, that were to educate and I mean, it was the fear base. I was like, congratulations. Cause we all, as we all collectively talked as Gen Xers, we're scared mindless. We were so scared, period. But we're all heterosexual men, so, but we're talking about, we're like, oh, great. You have intercourse with somebody and your unit's going to fall off, or I mean, that's the kind of fear that was being put out there back in those days.
And they got some of it wrong. And remember who was in charge at that point? Lord Fauci.
Oh my God.
And, at one point they were saying, that anybody could get it, heterosexual intercourse could still result in it. And as it turned out, it's one of those things. At the end of the day, I don't know, that they should have said all those things, because some of it turned out to be untrue. But you would just think, okay, since we did that in the 80s up through the early 90s, can't we start treating pandemics differently? And now that we've just come through COVID, and it seems like they want to jump right on to monkeypox and treat it the same way. Here in LA, I mean, monkeypox is big news again, but I got to throw something else into the mix that happened today, because this is a big deal. I'm not sure if this is going to go out today or over the weekend, but as we're recording this on a Thursday, so today, Barbara Ferrer, our unelected health bureaucrat, basically said she's not going to make us do the mask mandate indoors again. This is a big deal in LA. And because she was threatening to make LA County do this all over again. And we would have been the only county in the state of California who would have done it. Well, at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time today, she made an announcement that she said, you know what, we're not going to do it right now. We're going to put the pause on it. But the truth of the matter is she has been exposed for some conflicts of interest. The spotlight is on her right now. I think that she's got a world of trouble coming her way very quickly. And I think that that's really the main reason that she's decided to back down on this.
Is she up for re-election, by the way?
She's not elected. That's the problem. And she's not even a doctor. She's a social worker, and she's got this gig where she has an incredible amount of power. She makes really good money, and she's been pretty much dead wrong about almost everything. And she wanted us to return to indoor masking, but she said no today.
It's interesting because there are been an uptick with what are they calling this? The AB variant, right?
Yeah, the AB5, I think.
AB5, yeah. So the new variant, which is supposed to be super contagious. Look, I mean, if you're whatever makes you feel comfortable, do that. If you got boosted, if you got your shots, play in your own world. I mean, for me, I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm going to concerts. I saw Kenny Chesney, great concert. It was nice that Old Dominion or one of the bands retweeted me, which was cool. I was like, oh, cool. I got a retweet. I was awesome. So shout out to them. And it was just fun. Great concert, just going out and doing life. I mean, for 2 years, we've had this pause and being able to, especially during the summertime, man. I mean, especially in the Northwest. I know that people listen around the country and around the world, but in the Northwest, man, it gets gray here. And if you don't have a chance, an opportunity to get outside and get that fresh air, man, stop wearing your mask outside. Look, do it. I mean, if that's what makes you feel comfortable, but let me just tell you, you breathe that fresh air, get that Northwest.
You might need some oxygen.
You might, as we get close to wrapping things up here from the Pacific Northwest, it's always a pleasure to have you come on the show and talk and
it's
just
an honor.
Just to shoot that, the crap as we, just to have fun. I know I just saw that Pale Horse Rider put something out about his old town in New Orleans taking something to like 2 hours to get a 911 call to be answered. That is crazy to me.
You know what, Mario? I have not seen that yet, but when I was scanning news articles earlier today, I saw a headline, and I didn't get to click on it because I was looking for something else that said New Orleans has fallen. And I wonder if that's what he's talking about, is that they're just I mean, there's a lot of major urban areas in the U.S. right now where we've lost our way and things are falling apart.
We really got to, from city to city, from coast to coast, we really got to support our men in blue.
Yes.
We got to support these guys, right in difference. I mean, they're going to get things sorted out. We need to back them. Every time, like I was in a Chinese restaurant getting dinner for Soph and I in the International District. Great old school Chinese place that Bruce Lee used to go to in Seattle.
Ooh.
So we went there, got some of the best Chinese food, and there was an officer right there doing his thing. And as he was walking, I said, "Hey, thank you for your service." And he said, "Thank you." He was happy to hear that. Look, we got to support our men and women behind behind the badge.
Amen.
It's just, we got to, man. It's just, these guys are out here to serve, serve and protect us. And they're doing a community service. Yes, they're getting paid, but they're putting their lives on the line. We need to back them as much as we possibly can. So, man,
order is good. Order is a good thing. And these guys, here's the problem. It's like, if you treat them badly, they'll do that job somewhere else. And so, I mean, a lot of communities, they're going to have to wake up to the fact, like, I'm not saying every cop is perfect. I'm not saying that the cops haven't done things they shouldn't do, but by and large, right now, we really need them. And all you have to do is like look at how bad off LA is right now, because our city management is so bad, and the cops are demoralized because we have a terrible district attorney and who won't prosecute anything. And our town is going to crap.
Our guest tonight, Michael Parker, you can find him on his podcast and radio show on the TNT radio network. But where's it at again?
Yeah, I believe it's just TNT Live, TNT. My goodness gracious, TNT Radio. If you look for that and then you look for My Show D program, you'll find me. But I think it's just TNTLive.com.
From the Pacific Northwest, I'd like to thank Michael Parker, Mark Christopher, Jeff Jen, Sophia Magana, and myself, Mario Magana. Remember to look up at the sky, because you never know what you might see. Good night.